Earth has been colonized. Some cities use more resources than other cities. That's true. But every place has been colonized. You hear some people saying that it's just not fair. These Western neoliberal cultures are using up all the resources. That's just not true anymore. Exponentials happened. Every continent has large cities. What you see here is just a small number of cities. There are hundreds, thousands more. And every city, big and small, and every suburb and small town surrounding these cities are using the same resources. Each one of these buildings requires maintenance, just like your apartment or your home. If something breaks, it needs to be fixed. So you have to go out and find it at the store. But what you find at the store comes from the earth. Everything has to be mined or forested or farmed. Something has to happen to get it from the earth to the store, to your home. Now we have buildings like this all over the world. And all of these buildings and all of the surrounding suburbs and small towns need the same resources to maintain. Everything has been colonized, and everyone is using the same short-term investment strategy. People say, oh, but things regenerate and there's plenty of space. But that's just not true at this point. The population increases at 3 additional children per second. But somehow we're supposed to have 3 additional jobs for everyone, 3 additional houses, all the food and maintenance required to keep a person's life going. That all has to come from somewhere. But people sit online and they blame corporations and they blame the greed of billionaires and they blame everybody. And the billionaires and the people who run the corporations and the politicians who profit from all of that, they blame lazy people. And if you just get out and find a job and stop looking for handouts. But very few people take a look at the reality of where we're at right now and see that we're all using the same stuff. By adding 3 additional children per second to this, you quickly see the problem. How many more of these cities can we build? And if this is the plan for all of our efforts to build more and more of these cities, then there is a point where there are limits to growth, because reality is that we live on a finite planet. Each one of these cities and the thousands of smaller cities and small towns surrounding these cities use cement for highways, for buildings. They use plastics and oil. They're building factories and highways and stores and schools and more high-rises. And all of that requires resources. When those resources begin to run out, then tensions get worse and violence gets worse and people attack each other for whatever is left, just so that they can continue this short-term strategy of breeding more kids, shopping, and building more buildings. Habitat overshoot is a thing. Other species have habitat overshoot, and that means that a species is consuming more than the environment can provide. Yet they can't stop the systems in place to stop consuming. So it becomes a cycle until it collapses. This isn't so much an issue of neoliberal politics, colonization, and greed and whatever. This is an issue of sexuality and gender. If you're on this planet, you're told that you're here to have children. That's your purpose for being here. It's your duty, but more than that, it's your purpose in life. It is really the only thing that is going to bring you happiness. Of course, once you have those children, it is then your responsibility to provide resources for them. So the more children you have, the more responsibility you have to provide resources for those children. We're already witnessing the habitat of this planet collapsing, not only for the human species, but for many, many other species because of what's going on right now. Yet still, we continue to build, and still, people continue to breed 3 additional children per second. This means we can accept habitat collapse, habitat overshoot. That's our fate. That's the road we're on. Nothing we can do about it. Or if people are seriously considering how to approach the problems and how to solve them, they have to first look at the reality of the situation. And these photographs show the reality of the situation. We have colonized the planet and expanded our growth deep into the habitat that supports our life. We have to question the roles demanded of us by our gender. And then there's sex education. This is another topic people refuse to bring up in the discussion of ecology and global economics. If you bring it up, then you must be in favor of eugenics and you're a racist and how dare you tell people when they can have children. But nothing could be further from the truth. What we're talking about here is avoiding child abuse. If you bring children into this world today, they are facing a very dangerous and dire situation. Sex education educates people on how to take responsibility for their reproductive behavior. That's all it is. And you can get through this life without having children just fine. Lots of people do it. And you cannot have children and have a happy and productive life. And it is true. The people who own all this stuff, who own massive amounts of real estate or factories or whatever, they like this game. Just keep having more kids. The more kids, the more consumers. It all works out fine. They know that the end game is near, but they're making a lot of money and they're having a good time. So, hey, discussions about birth control are discussions about capitalism, socialism, colonization. Discussions about gender are discussions about capitalism, socialism, and the colonization of your mind. And this much needed sex education will include a discussion about how diverse ecology is with both sexuality and gender. Science has shown that ecological diversity depends on gender and sexual diversity in many circumstances, and we can learn a lot from that discussion. This rigid adherence to heterosexism and natalism has gotten us where we are today with the collapse of the environment. Truth is, homosexuality and transgender behavior occurs throughout ecology. It's not queer, it just is. And oftentimes, species will change genders or they will have different types of sexuality in order to adapt to the ecology around them. And then you hear that people will never change. They will always want to have children. They will always want to provide for those children. And anyway, there's lots of resources out there. If we just vote for the right people, or some people think if we just pray to the right gods, it will all work out. But as you can see by these pictures, it will not all work out. There is a limit to this. When you look at each of these cities around the world, remember that mingled in between all of this, there are chemical factories and mining operations and other industries which extract from the earth, that pollute, and which require endless growth in order to maintain a very short-term profit. Each one of these cities and their surrounding civilizations require massive military power in order to secure things like shipping and markets. However, it's the same problem. Whether it's capitalism or socialism, you still need resources to provide commodities to these large societies. And you need some way to secure those resources so that people just don't steal them from each other. There's the choice. You can continue to go down a path that you know has an end. You can refuse to question your responsibilities as a human being to breed more children and the roles you must play because of your gender. Or you can take a good look at this reality that we are a human species on a planet, and if perhaps we changed our behavior, then in fact there may be a way forward. Oh, but then we could go to Mars, or we could get a spaceship and find other planets. There is no science out there backing up the idea that we can live on Mars as human beings, and certainly no science that we can travel through space to some mythical other planet. There is science showing that a species can change their behavior, the way they interact with each other sexually, and adapt their gender roles to the ecology they live in. And I know human behavior. People will blow the entire planet up so they can get a new widescreen TV for a few days. But let's, for a moment, think that there are people who actually value life and would like, if for no other reason than it's a challenge, they would like to engage in a scientific approach to dealing with ecology, climate change, resources, and commodities, all while having an adult conversation about sexuality and gender.